The moment my own father's hand struck me, everything I believed about family shattered forever. My name is Sarah Mitchell. I'm 33 years old, and if you had told me a year ago that I'd be on the floor of my childhood home with blood running down my face with my 6-year-old daughter crying in horror as her grandfather stood over me, I wouldn't have believed you. But here I am telling you a story that's far from ordinary, a story about betrayal, broken promises, and the fight to reclaim dignity in the face of family violence. That night, the silence of the house was shattered by screams, my daughter's screams echoing in my mind to this day. If you've ever felt trapped by the people who are supposed to love you unconditionally, stay with me, and if this hits close to home, don't hesitate to leave a like and share where you're watching from. It all started with what looked like the perfect life. I had the American dream neatly packaged in an inviting 4-bedroom house with a porch I drank coffee on every morning, a stable job making good money, and a husband who seemed to have it all figured out. Our daughter Emily was thriving at a prestigious private preschool, and our vacations to sunny beaches were regular escapes. But that illusion cracked one ordinary evening when I arrived home early to a scene that shattered everything. I found my husband Mark in our bedroom with a woman I barely knew. His expression wasn't guilt or surprise, it was irritation that I'd caught him. The following months were a blur of legal battles that left me with barely anything. Mark leveraged his connections and an aggressive lawyer to shield his assets while I watched savings and hope drain away. I ended up selling the house, barely able to cover a few months' rent, and child support payments were erratic at best. Exhausted and desperate, I reached out to my parents hoping their home would be a refuge. They welcomed Emily and me initially with open arms, but it wasn't long before the warmth turned cold. Living back under their roof felt less like a sanctuary and more like a trap. Every decision I made was scrutinized. Every dollar I spent was questioned. My mother often compared me to women of her generation who knew how to keep a marriage together, implying I'd failed in ways beyond repair. Emily's laughter grew quieter, her confidence dimmed, and I realized our presence was more burden than blessing. The tension crept into every corner of the house, poisoning what should have been a safe space. If you've ever felt the sting of being judged by those who claim to care for you, I want to hear your story in the comments below. Sometimes sharing our pain is the first step to healing. The breaking point came during Emily's 6th birthday. I planned a small gathering, just a few friends from her new school. But my mother took over, ordering extravagant cakes and gifts, overshadowing my modest efforts. She dismissed my concerns about finances within earshot of Emily, undermining my role as her mother. When Emily's handmade art project, a diorama of our family, was thrown away like trash, her tears broke something inside me. The coldness of that moment was a warning of the storm to come. One morning, after months of simmering tensions, my father, usually the quiet one, lost control. When Emily accidentally spilled juice on a treasured family heirloom, his anger erupted in a slap that sent me crashing to the floor, blood pooling beneath me. Hearing my daughter's terrified cries as she watched her grandfather strike her mother is an image that haunts me still. We packed our belongings in silence that night. With no plan, no destination, just a fierce determination to protect my daughter from a home that no longer felt safe. Leaving was the hardest decision, but it was the only way to reclaim our lives. I'm sharing this with you, not because I want sympathy, but because so many of us have faced broken families, toxic love, and the fight for respect. If you're watching now somewhere in the middle of your own struggle, know you're not alone. Keep holding on. Leaving the house that night was like stepping into the unknown with nothing but a suitcase and my daughter's trembling hand in mine. Emily was quiet, her big eyes trying to process the chaos that had just upended everything she knew. We had nowhere to go, no apartment waiting, no safety net. My savings were nearly gone after legal fees and rent, and the weight of uncertainty pressed down on me like a heavy fog. But the fear of staying in a place where I was hurt and my daughter terrified was far worse. Our first stop was to a close friend's apartment. Jessica had been a constant in my life through all of this, a lifeline when I needed it most. Her small 1-bedroom was crowded with the addition of Emily and me, but she welcomed us without hesitation. That night, as I laid on a cramped couch with my daughter curled against me, the physical pain from my head injury was nothing compared to the ache of lost security and shattered family. I tried to reassure Emily, whispering promises of better days and a safe home. "Mommy, will we ever have our own place again?" she asked softly. I clung to the hope that someday, yes, we would. The days that followed were a balancing act of job hunting, skill building, and navigating the new reality of single parenthood with limited resources. I updated my resume, took online courses to catch up with the evolving digital marketing landscape, and took freelance gigs that barely paid minimum wage. Every penny was stretched thin, selling my newer car to afford an older model, cutting out luxuries, and buying Emily's clothes from thrift stores. The embarrassment of relying on my parents while knowing how little support I actually received gnawed at me. Returning to my parents' house to gather our remaining belongings was another test of strength. I felt like a stranger in the home I once called my own. Their cold gazes and whispered conversations made it clear we were unwelcome. My daughter's favorite teddy bear was forgotten in the chaos, a painful oversight that triggered her first of many nightmares. But even as I faced the crushing reality of betrayal from those who were supposed to protect me, a small spark of resilience began to glow. In the midst of the darkness, a glimmer of light appeared through a coworker named Shannon. She noticed the bruises I tried to hide and offered a discreet helping hand, a connection to a landlord willing to work with someone in my position. That simple act of kindness reminded me that not all support comes from family, and sometimes the people we choose to surround ourselves with become the family we need. Every small step toward stability was a victory. Signing the lease for our first apartment, moving our limited possessions into a bare space, and starting a new job were monumental milestones. The apartment wasn't much worn carpet, basic appliances, empty rooms, but it was ours. For the first time in months, Emily could sleep without fear, and I could breathe without looking over my shoulder. If you're watching this and have faced betrayal or homelessness, share your story in the comments. Sometimes hearing others has been the greatest comfort. Building this new life required more than just physical space. It demanded healing. Emily's therapist, Dr. Abrams, helped her find a voice through play therapy, transforming trauma into stories where she held control. Meanwhile, I rebuilt my career, gaining recognition for my work and slowly restoring my confidence. The journey was far from linear. Some days were filled with hope, others with doubt, but we moved forward together. This chapter taught me the painful but vital lesson that family isn't always who we are born to. True family is the support, respect, and love we earn and give. And sometimes to find that we have to walk away from those who hurt us the most. Remember, you deserve safety and respect in every relationship. If this story resonates, please subscribe and join me in rewriting our stories of resilience and hope. My name is Sarah Mitchell, and I never imagined that the people who raised me could become my greatest source of pain. After my divorce left me vulnerable, I thought returning to my parents' home with my daughter Emily would provide a sanctuary. Instead, it quickly became a place where judgment, coldness, and criticism replaced the warmth I had once known. They welcomed us with open arms at first, but beneath the surface, disappointment simmered. It was clear from my mother's tone and my father's sighs that my failure to maintain a perfect family was a stain on their pride. The house that was once my safe haven turned into a battlefield where every action was scrutinized. From the way I dressed for job interviews to how I fed Emily, my efforts were met with disapproval. My mother often reminisced about how women in her day kept their marriages together, an unspoken accusation that I had somehow failed. The tension was suffocating, and it wasn't long before Emily began to withdraw, her bright spirit dimmed by the unease that permeated the household. If you've ever felt judged harshly by those who should support you, I invite you to share your experience below. Knowing we're not alone can be a powerful step toward healing. During Emily's 6th birthday party, I tried to create a simple celebration, inviting a few of her new school friends. But my mother took control, transforming it into an extravagant affair that overshadowed my plans and my role as her mother. Within earshot of Emily, she dismissed my concerns about finances and undermined my decisions, leaving me feeling powerless in my own home. The breaking point came when Emily's painstakingly crafted school project, a diorama of our family, was thrown away like trash, the tears streaming down my daughter's face, breaking my heart. Despite the mounting challenges, I held on to hope. A promising job opportunity at Meridian Healthcare surfaced, offering a chance to regain independence. But when I shared this with my parents, their reaction was far from supportive. Instead of congratulations, I was met with skepticism and thinly veiled resentment. "We'll believe it when we see the paycheck," my mother said coldly. The path to freedom seemed blocked at every turn. One afternoon, after Emily accidentally spilled juice on a cherished family heirloom, the fragile piece shattered completely. My father, usually quiet and passive, lost control and struck me hard enough to send me crashing to the floor. Blood trickled from a cut on my temple as Emily's terrified screams filled the kitchen. In that moment, the illusion of family safety was irrevocably broken. If you faced moments when the people you love have hurt you, please leave a comment to share your strength with others who might be listening. That night, we packed what little we had and left without looking back. With no place to call home and a future uncertain, I relied on the kindness of friends and strangers. Jessica, my closest friend, opened her small apartment to us, and I began the daunting task of rebuilding one job application, one online course, one step at a time. The journey was grueling, filled with setbacks and sacrifices, but with Emily by my side, I refused to give up. This story isn't just mine. It belongs to anyone who has ever faced betrayal, loss, or the daunting challenge of starting over. If you're watching this now, please know you're not alone. Together we can find the strength to rise. Returning to my parents' home was supposed to be a refuge for me and Emily, a place where we could heal from the wreckage of my marriage and rebuild our lives. For a short while, it felt like a safe landing, a familiar room, fresh linens, and the quiet hum of a house I had grown up in. But that feeling was fleeting. The subtle tension soon crept in, manifesting in quiet sighs and pointed remarks that cut deeper than any overt confrontation. My mother's comments about women in her day were not just nostalgic reflections, they were thinly veiled criticisms of my choices and my struggles. She often reminded me that I should have done more to keep my marriage intact, implying that my failure was both personal and public. My father, though less vocal, reinforced these judgments through his silence and occasional sighs. Their disappointment wasn't just about me. It was about the image I had tarnished in their eyes. At the same time, I was desperately trying to find work. The marketing world I had known had shifted dramatically in the years I was focused on motherhood. Interviews often ended with polite rejections, citing my outdated skills or lack of recent experience with digital platforms. The jobs available paid far less than what I had earned before, making it difficult to cover the rising costs of living in Rochester. Every day felt like walking a tightrope, balancing my responsibilities as a mother with the urgent need to regain financial independence. Emily was caught in the middle of this storm. She had to switch schools mid-year, leaving behind friends and a routine that had once brought her comfort. At home, she became quieter, more cautious. I noticed her hesitating to speak up, whispering questions instead of asking them outright, as if afraid to draw attention to herself. The bright, outgoing child I knew was slowly retreating into a shell of anxiety and fear. If any of you have faced the heartache of watching a child suffer in silence, I invite you to share your experiences below. Sometimes knowing others understand can ease the burden. Despite the mounting challenges, I remained determined. I took online courses to update my marketing skills and accepted freelance projects even when they paid little more than minimum wage. I sold my newer car for a less expensive model, canceled subscriptions, and bought Emily's clothes from thrift stores instead of boutiques. Every decision was calculated, every dollar stretched, all to create a better future for us. But the strain of living under my parents' roof grew heavier. My mother's criticisms became more frequent and overt, questioning every purchase from work shoes to school supplies. She compared my struggles to her own experiences, conveniently forgetting the differences in our circumstances and the weight of raising a child alone. My father began to echo her sentiments, encouraging me to be more practical about my situation. Their words created a cold, unwelcoming atmosphere that made it clear we were guests in a home that no longer felt like family. Emily's well-being suffered in this environment. She began having nightmares and regressed to behavior she had long outgrown, like thumb-sucking. Her pediatrician and school counselor noticed changes in her behavior, attributing them to stress and anxiety. Children are incredibly sensitive to the emotional climates around them, and despite my efforts to shield her, the tension seeped into every corner of our lives. At times, I felt like I was failing, not just as a provider but as a mother. The weight of responsibility pressed down on me, compounded by the constant judgment from those who were supposed to support us. But every day I reminded myself that this was temporary, that we were moving towards something better. And with Emily's quiet strength and my unwavering determination, I believed we could survive this storm. The fragile peace within my parents' home continued to unravel as the days turned into weeks. The tension that once simmered beneath polite facades escalated into open criticism and subtle power plays. My mother's disapproval was constant. She questioned everything from how I managed Emily's diet to the way I handled our limited finances. It was as if no effort I made was ever enough. Each morning I would brace myself for the inevitable critique, hoping to shield Emily from the growing storm, but the strain was palpable. Finding a new job became my highest priority, yet the job market was unforgiving. Employers sought candidates with current digital marketing experience, a skill set I was only beginning to reacquire. Interviews often ended in polite rejections, leaving me to wonder if my years spent caring for Emily had become a professional liability. The positions I was qualified for offered salaries far below what we needed, and the rising cost of living in Rochester meant every penny counted. I juggled freelance gigs that barely covered essentials, hoping to build a portfolio that would open doors to better opportunities. Emily struggled alongside me. The upheaval of changing schools mid-year left her confused and lonely. Friends she had known since preschool were suddenly out of reach, and the routine that once provided comfort was shattered. At home, she became increasingly withdrawn, her laughter less frequent, her questions quieter. Nights were often disrupted by tears and fears, a silent testimony to the emotional toll of our situation. If any of you have faced the heart-wrenching challenge of comforting a child through turmoil, I invite you to share your story. Sometimes the simple act of connection can provide strength. Despite the hardships, I refused to give up. I enrolled in online courses to sharpen my digital marketing skills and accepted any freelance work I could find. I made difficult choices, selling my newer car for a more affordable model, cutting unnecessary expenses, and buying Emily's clothes from thrift stores. Every sacrifice was made with the hope of creating a better future for us. But the criticisms at home only intensified. My mother's disapproval grew more direct, questioning the validity of my job search and the practicality of my efforts. She would comment on my spending, from buying work shoes to purchasing school supplies for Emily, with a tone that suggested I was squandering what little I had. My father, usually silent, began to echo her sentiments, urging me to be more realistic and take responsibility. Their combined voices created an environment where I felt unwelcome and incapable. The emotional weight of living under such scrutiny was heavy. Emily became quieter, more cautious, as if afraid to draw attention. She whispered questions to me rather than speaking openly, and her teacher alerted me to her declining participation and anxiety symptoms at school. Children absorbed the emotional atmosphere around them, and despite my efforts, I could not shield her entirely. At times, the exhaustion and isolation were overwhelming. I often found myself awake late into the night, questioning whether I was doing enough, whether I would ever find the stability we desperately needed. But in the quiet moments, I reminded myself that this was not the end of our story. With resilience and determination, Emily and I would find our way back to safety and peace. 3 months into our stay at my parents' house, the atmosphere had shifted from subtly uncomfortable to outright hostile. Every morning began with my mother's scrutinizing gaze as I prepared breakfast for Emily and myself. I was constantly reminded of the proper way to do things, the right foods, to serve, the right way to fold laundry, the right approach to parenting. Her criticisms, once veiled in gentle suggestions, became sharp-edged accusations. "You're letting her have sugary cereal again," she said one morning, shaking her head. "No wonder she can't sit still in class." It was clear that nothing I did was good enough. My father, who had always been more passive, began to align himself quietly with my mother's judgments. He rarely spoke directly, but made his feelings known through heavy sighs or sudden disappearances to tend the yard. His silence was louder than any words. It was as if both of them wanted us gone but lacked the courage to say it outright. Despite the toxic environment, I continued my job search relentlessly. I landed a part-time content creator role at a small marketing firm, earning $25 an hour for 20 hours a week. It wasn't enough to cover all our expenses, but it was a start. I contributed what I could to the household, buying groceries, cooking meals, and helping with chores, trying to show that I was doing my part, even if it wasn't enough for them. But any money I spent beyond necessities was met with suspicion. When I bought a modest pair of interview shoes from a clearance rack, my mother remarked coldly, "New shoes, Sarah, must be nice to have disposable income while living rent-free." I explained that maintaining a professional appearance was essential for interviews, but she dismissed my explanation with a wave of her hand. "People in real financial trouble don't worry about fashion," she said, as if that made me less worthy. If you're watching this and have ever been judged unfairly in your darkest moments, I want to hear from you. Sharing these stories helps us heal together. Amidst the growing hostility, I received promising news: a job interview with Meridian Healthcare for a marketing manager position. The process was long and challenging, with multiple rounds of interviews, but I was cautiously optimistic. The salary offered would allow Emily and me to move out and regain our independence. For the first time in months, I dared to dream of a fresh start. However, sharing this hope with my parents was met with cold skepticism. My mother's face remained impassive when I told her the good news. "Well, it's about time something worked out," she said flatly. "Though I'll believe it when I see the paycheck. You've had promising opportunities before." Her dismissal stung deeply, but I forced myself to stay positive for Emily's sake. Emily's well-being continued to decline under the pressure. She had nightmares that woke her several times a week, and her pediatrician noted weight loss and signs of stress. The school counselor called to discuss her anxiety, nail-biting, and reluctance to participate in class. Children are sensitive barometers of family tension, absorbing every silent conflict, even when adults try to hide it. I realized that no matter how hard I worked, the home we were in was damaging Emily's spirit. I longed for the day we could leave and create a safe, nurturing environment where she could thrive. That hope kept me going through the darkest days. The day Emily turned 6 was meant to be a celebration of new beginnings, a moment to remind ourselves of hope amid hardship. I carefully planned a small, simple birthday party in my parents' backyard, inviting a few of Emily's new friends. I wanted it to be special, but within our means, something Emily could enjoy without overwhelming costs. I had saved every penny, wanting to give her a day to smile, genuinely free from the shadows that had clouded our lives. But from the moment my mother stepped in, the party was no longer mine to control. She took charge, inviting distant relatives I hardly knew, ordering an extravagant cake that cost more than our weekly grocery budget, and buying lavish presents that made my modest gifts seem insignificant. When I voiced my concerns about the expenses and scale, she dismissed me with a cold, authoritative tone. "I'm doing what you should have done if you'd managed your life properly." Throughout the party, she continually undermined my authority as Emily's mother. When I suggested Emily wait until after dinner to eat cake, my mother immediately served her a slice. When I proposed opening presents later, she encouraged Emily to tear into them right away. Each time, Emily looked to me with confusion, unsure whose instructions to follow. My heart broke a little more with each moment. After the party, I overheard my parents discussing me in the kitchen, their words sharp and unkind. "How long do you think this situation will continue?" my father asked. "It's been 3 months already." "She's taking advantage," my mother replied. "She's comfortable here. Why would she leave free childcare, free housing? She's not trying hard enough to stand on her own 2 feet. Their words felt like blows to my spirit. Every day I was applying for jobs, attending courses, networking, and trying to be the best mother I could be while navigating the emotional aftermath of my divorce. To be seen as lazy and dependent by my own parents was crushing. If you've ever been made to feel like you're a burden to those who should support you, share your experience in the comments below. Sometimes knowing others understand makes all the difference. Tensions reached a boiling point the following morning when my mother criticized my parenting in front of Emily. She blamed my permissive style for Emily's reluctance to eat breakfast, suggesting I was failing as a mother. I asked my mother calmly if we could discuss her concerns privately, but she snapped back, "Don't tell me how to speak in my own house. If you don't like my opinions, maybe you should find somewhere else to live." Emily's small face crumpled as she sensed the conflict. I reassured her, "It's okay, sweetie. Grandma and I are just having a grown-up conversation." But my mother insisted Emily needed to hear it all, telling her actions have consequences. "Your mother made choices that led to this situation, and now we're all dealing with the consequences." That moment was a harsh lesson in how toxic family dynamics can be disguised as concern and love. After that painful morning, the weight of living under my parents' roof grew heavier each day. Their words disguised as concern felt like knives cutting through any hope I had left. I did my best to stay strong for Emily, but inside I was unraveling. Her innocent question haunted me. "Mommy, does Grandma not like us anymore? Did I do something wrong?" I held back tears and assured her, "No, baby, it's not you." Sometimes grown-ups say things they don't really mean when they're frustrated. But the truth was more complicated. Their love came wrapped in conditions I hadn't realized until that moment, conditions that demanded compliance and silence rather than support and understanding. I found solace in my friend Jessica. Though her small apartment was bursting at the seams, she offered us a place to stay whenever I needed a break from the hostility. Her support, though limited, reminded me that family could be chosen and found in unexpected places. She also helped by watching Emily during critical moments, giving me space to focus on job applications and interviews. Despite this glimmer of hope, I was trapped in a cycle of anxiety and exhaustion. Each night as Emily slept, I faced waves of fear and uncertainty, wondering if I'd ever rebuild a life where my daughter felt safe and loved unconditionally. My head throbbed from the stress and the unresolved pain of my past, but giving up was not an option. One evening, as I scrolled through job listings, I received a message that felt like a lifeline. A company wanted to expedite my start date by several weeks. The salary they offered would allow Emily and me to finally move out to reclaim a space we could call our own. My heart soared with hope. Maybe this was the turning point. But when I shared the news, the response was cold and dismissive. 5 more weeks, my mother scoffed. That's too long. How do we know this job will even work out? Your track record doesn't inspire confidence. My father chimed in, echoing her skepticism, making it clear they expected us gone long before that date. Their lack of faith stung deeply, but I reminded myself why I was fighting to create a better future for Emily. I kept pushing forward, juggling work, school, and parenting while navigating the toxic environment I was forced to call home. If you're in a situation where you feel doubted or unsupported, please share your story below. Together we can find strength in our shared struggles. Through it all, Emily's resilience was my anchor. Though she faced nightmares and anxiety, her spirit remained unbroken. With the help of school counselors and therapists, she began to heal, finding safe spaces to express her feelings and regain confidence. Watching her recover became my greatest motivation. The more time passed, the more I realized that Emily's well-being was the true barometer of our situation. Her anxiety and nightmares were signs I could no longer ignore. School counselors offered support, connecting us with play therapists who specialized in childhood trauma. Emily's transformation through therapy was remarkable. She began to reclaim her joy and curiosity, slowly shedding the fear that had taken root during those months of instability. It was a testament to the resilience children can have when given love and patience. At work, I was navigating my new role with cautious optimism. Meridian Healthcare valued my expertise, and my 3-month performance review brought unexpected praise. My supervisor commended my ability to communicate complex information simply and even discussed expanding my responsibilities. For the first time in months, I felt the confidence I had lost creeping back. It was a small victory, but one that signified hope and progress. Yet even as our lives began to stabilize, the ghosts of my past still lingered. My parents continued to call, leaving messages tinged with concern, yet filled with blame. They claimed they cared, but their words betrayed a lack of understanding. They blamed me for provoking the violence, for being dramatic, and for failing to show proper gratitude. Their inability to acknowledge the pain they caused was a bitter pill to swallow. I realized that healing from such deep wounds required setting boundaries, not just for my own sanity, but for Emily's safety. Our interactions with my parents became limited and carefully managed, focused on providing Emily with the opportunity to maintain some relationship while protecting ourselves from further harm. This was not forgiveness. It was self-preservation. If you're facing toxic relationships, I encourage you to consider what boundaries you need to set for your own healing. Share your journey in the comments. It might help someone else take their first step. My support network grew stronger too. Shannon, a compassionate coworker, introduced me to a group of single parents who met weekly to share experiences and provide mutual encouragement. Through them, I learned that rebuilding life after trauma is a winding path filled with setbacks, but also moments of profound growth. The stories of others reminded me I wasn't alone, and that resilience could be found even in the darkest times. Emily also found surrogate family in our neighbors. Rachel, a retired teacher, offered to watch her occasionally and became a nurturing presence, teaching Emily to bake cookies and tend a small garden. It was a reminder that family can be chosen, built on love and support, rather than blood alone. As Emily's world gradually brightened, my relationship with her father, Mark, began to shift in unexpected ways. After months of erratic child support payments and minimal involvement, he started to show signs of change. Whether it was prompted by seeing our resilience or some newfound stability in his own life, Mark became more consistent in meeting his financial obligations and requested more regular visitation with Emily. During one exchange, he awkwardly acknowledged my efforts. "You've done a good job with her through all this. She seems happy despite everything." Though the praise was faint and rare, it was a step toward a functional co-parenting relationship. I understood that perfection was unrealistic, and focusing on Emily's well-being meant accepting imperfect efforts and moving forward. Every small improvement meant a little more peace for us. Meanwhile, my own professional and financial life took strides forward. 6 months into my new role at Meridian, I had managed to build an emergency fund to cover a month's expenses. My credit score, damaged by the divorce and housing instability, was slowly recovering as I maintained consistent payments. These achievements, though modest, symbolized significant progress from the financial cliff I had once teetered on. Looking back on this journey from that bloodied kitchen floor to our current stability, I recognized patterns I was determined to break. The generational cycle of emotional control disguised as love, the conditional support demanding obedience rather than independence, would end with me. I vowed that Emily would grow up knowing that love does not demand perfection or submission. True family supports growth and freedom. One evening, as Emily stirred pasta sauce in our small kitchen, she asked Mommy, "Are you still mad at Grandma and Grandpa?" I paused, choosing my words carefully. "I'm not mad anymore, but I'm still sad about what happened. Sometimes people we love make big mistakes that change relationships forever. I'm trying to build a new kind of relationship with them that feels safe for both of us." Her thoughtful nod and simple analogy about friendship contracts showed me how deeply she was processing our experience. "Like when I broke Maddie's bracelet at school and we made rules so we could still be friends," she said. Children's ability to find meaning in their world never ceases to amaze me. Our apartment, though modest, was a sanctuary where we could heal and grow without fear. Here, safety and respect were non-negotiable. The journey was far from over, but together Emily and I had found strength we never knew we had. The small apartment Emily and I now called home was a far cry from the life we once had, but it represented something far more valuable: freedom and safety. We started with bare walls, no furniture beyond what we could carry, and limited resources. The first nights were spent eating takeout on the floor, using our suitcases as makeshift tables. Despite the scarcity, Emily's spirit shone through. She called it our adventure house, finding joy in what I had seen as hardship. Establishing stability was a slow process. Every day involved juggling work, parenting, and healing from the scars of our past. The support I received from coworkers was unexpected and heartwarming. Shannon, who had quietly noticed my struggles, organized an office collection to help furnish our apartment. Items like dishes, lamps, and even a secondhand television arrived, reminding me that kindness can come from strangers and that no one is truly alone. While physical stability was growing, emotional healing required patience. Emily continued therapy sessions to address the trauma she had endured. Through play therapy, she began to express feelings she couldn't put into words, helping her regain control and agency. Watching her smile more, play with friends, and participate in school activities was the greatest gift. I too found healing in community. The single parents group Shannon introduced me to provided a space to share, listen, and learn. Hearing others' stories of struggle and resilience reminded me that life's challenges do not define us. One member's words resonated deeply. "The hardest part is accepting that the story you thought you were living isn't the story you're actually in. Once you grieve that, you can start writing a new one." This truth became my guiding light. Throughout this journey, I learned that family isn't just who we're born to, but who supports us through our darkest times. Rachel, a retired teacher and neighbor, became a surrogate grandmother to Emily, teaching her to bake cookies and care for plants. These connections filled the gaps left by my own family's absence. My relationship with Mark remained complex. While his involvement increased, it was far from perfect. We navigated co-parenting with the shared goal of Emily's happiness and stability. I accepted that this was the reality and focused on fostering a positive environment for my daughter. If you're rebuilding from hardship, know that progress is possible. Share your own stories in the comments. Your voice might inspire someone today. By the time 6 months had passed since we moved into our new apartment, the transformation in Emily and me was undeniable. The once stark and empty rooms began to fill with the warmth of our lives. Secondhand furniture, thoughtfully arranged, colorful artwork adorning the walls, most of it proudly created by Emily herself. Potted plants brought life and freshness to every windowsill, symbolizing our slow but steady growth. At work, my role expanded. Meridian Healthcare recognized my contributions, and my 3-month review was not only positive but included promises of advancement. My supervisor praised my marketing campaigns that increased patient enrollment by 20%, and discussions began about me leading the digital strategy team. This acknowledgement restored much of the confidence I had lost during the chaos of the past year. Emily's recovery, while remarkable, was a gradual process. The nightmares and anxiety that plagued her in the early months subsided over time thanks to consistent therapy and a stable environment. She began reconnecting with classmates and eagerly participated in school activities once more. Her academic performance, which had suffered during our turbulent times, improved steadily. The healing extended beyond us. I cautiously reintroduced limited contact with my parents, primarily for Emily's sake. Meetings were held in neutral places, parks, child-friendly restaurants, and museums, with strict boundaries to keep conversations positive and present-focused. Though my father appeared awkward and offered apologies, the emotional distance remained. He struggled to understand that mere words and financial support could not erase the trauma of his actions. My mother's behavior remained more challenging. Though she refrained from overt criticism, she continued subtle attempts at control masked as concern for Emily's health and well-being. I learned to respond neutrally, acknowledging her remarks without engagement. This steady boundary setting gradually lessened the tension. I also found strength in new friendships and support groups. The single-parent circle provided not just practical help, but emotional validation. Their shared experiences reminded me that the story I thought I was living had changed irrevocably. But within that change lay the opportunity to write a new narrative, one defined by resilience and hope. If you've experienced family pain and found your own path to healing, I'd love to hear your story in the comments. Together we create a community of strength. Despite the scars and setbacks, the journey toward healing brought unexpected moments of grace. Through the support of my coworkers, friends, and the new community I had embraced, I began to rebuild not only my career, but my sense of self-worth. Shannon's introduction to a single parents group became a lifeline. These gatherings were spaces where stories of survival, resilience, and hope were shared without judgment. It was here that I learned the importance of rewriting my narrative and letting go of the story I once clung to, the story of a perfect family that never existed. Emily's relationship with her grandparents remained cautious and limited, carefully managed for her emotional safety. While my parents attempted to show remorse, it became clear that genuine change would require time and consistent effort, something I wasn't willing to rush. I realized that forgiveness didn't mean forgetting, but setting boundaries that protected my daughter and me from further harm. In our small apartment, the walls echoed with laughter once again. Emily thrived in her school, surrounded by new friends and nurturing teachers. Her play therapist, Dr. Abrams, celebrated her progress in expressing feelings and regaining control over her emotions. Watching my daughter reclaim her childhood was the greatest reward I could ask for. On the work front, my responsibilities expanded as I took on digital strategy leadership at Meridian Healthcare. This promotion was more than a job. It was a symbol of the strength and perseverance that had carried me through the darkest times. Each success was a step away from the past and toward a future defined by my own terms. Throughout this journey, I learned that family isn't always defined by blood, but by the love, respect, and support we choose to accept and give. The surrogate family I built around me, with friends like Jessica, Shannon, and neighbors like Rachel, became my true community. If you're rebuilding from pain or betrayal, remember that your story is still being written. Share your journey in the comments. Your voice might be the beacon someone else needs. As the months passed, the distance between my parents and me remained, but I found peace in the family I chose to surround myself with. Rachel, our kind neighbor and retired teacher, became a grandmother figure to Emily, filling the void left by her biological grandparents. She patiently taught Emily how to bake cookies, nurtured her love for gardening, and offered the kind of unconditional support we desperately needed. Rachel's presence reminded me that family is not just about bloodlines, but about the people who show up and care. My relationship with Mark, Emily's father, settled into a practical, cooperative co-parenting arrangement. Though imperfect, it brought stability for Emily, and that was what mattered most. His acknowledgement of my efforts, though rare and awkward, was a small but meaningful step toward mutual respect. Together we focused on what was best for our daughter, putting aside past grievances. I also found strength in the words and wisdom shared by fellow single parents. Tanya, a member of our support group, once said, "The hardest part is accepting that the story you thought you were living isn't the story you're actually in. Once you grieve that, you can start writing a new one." This resonated deeply with me. Letting go of the idealized vision of family allowed me to embrace the imperfect but genuine connections I had built. The journey was far from linear. Healing came in waves, with moments of doubt and fear, interspersed with hope and joy. But each day brought new opportunities to rewrite our story, one defined by resilience, love, and the courage to choose ourselves. Emily and I have learned that safety and dignity are rights, not privileges. Our modest apartment is more than a shelter. It's a sanctuary where we can grow without fear or judgment. And as we continue forward, I carry the belief that true family supports growth, not control, and love without conditions. If this story has touched your heart or reminded you of your own struggles, please share your thoughts in the comments. Together we can build a community that uplifts and empowers. After everything Emily and I endured, I finally understood what it truly means to reclaim your life. The road was long, filled with pain, setbacks, and moments where giving up seemed easier. But through it all, I learned that freedom isn't just about physical space. It's about reclaiming your voice, your choices, and your right to be treated with respect. Living under my parents' roof was a daily reminder of the cost of conditional love. Their constant criticism, their judgment wrapped in concern, and ultimately their betrayal had left deep scars. Yet those wounds also fueled my determination to build a better life for Emily and myself. I wanted her to know that family doesn't have to hurt. It should heal. My journey taught me that sometimes the hardest but most necessary step is to walk away from the people who are supposed to protect you when they become the source of pain. Setting boundaries isn't easy. It's uncomfortable. It's lonely. But it's vital for growth and safety. Through the kindness of friends like Jessica and Shannon, the compassion of new neighbors like Rachel, and the support of a community that understood my struggle, Emily and I found a chosen family. These relationships built on respect and genuine care became the foundation of our new life. Professionally, I regained my confidence and stability. The job at Meridian Healthcare wasn't just employment, it was a symbol of my resilience and ability to overcome. With every success, I reclaimed a piece of myself that had been lost. And most importantly, Emily began to heal. She smiled again, made new friends, and thrived in an environment filled with love and safety. Watching her regain her childhood was the most profound reward of all. If you're watching this and feeling trapped by toxic relationships or circumstances, know that you have the power to choose a different path. Your story isn't over. Share your experiences in the comments and let's support each other in building lives of dignity and freedom. If you believe in the right to live authentically and courageously, please subscribe and join me in continuing this journey. Together we can rewrite our stories one day at a time. Looking back on the journey Emily and I have traveled, I am filled with a quiet sense of pride and hope. Our story is not one of perfection but of perseverance, a testament to the strength found in the face of adversity. We started from a place of brokenness, uncertainty, and pain, but through resilience and the love we cultivated, we found a new beginning. Our modest apartment, once an empty shell, now feels like home, a sanctuary where laughter echoes and dreams take root. The walls that held our fears now surround us with safety and possibility. Emily's laughter, once scarce, fills the rooms, a constant reminder that healing is possible even after the darkest nights. The scars from the past remain, but they no longer define us. Instead, they serve as reminders of how far we have come and the lessons we've learned about love, boundaries, and self-worth. I have come to understand that family is not solely defined by blood, but by those who choose to support, uplift, and respect us. Our journey continues, marked by daily challenges and triumphs. Yet with every step, Emily and I grow stronger together, united by a bond forged in love and courage. I hope our story inspires others facing similar struggles to hold on, to find their voice, set their boundaries, and embrace the freedom to live authentically. To anyone watching, remember, you deserve to be safe, to be loved unconditionally, and to build the life you envision. Sometimes that means walking away from what no longer serves you and embracing the unknown with courage. Thank you for sharing this journey with me. If our story resonated, I invite you to like, comment, and subscribe, not just for more stories like this, but to join a community that believes in strength, hope, and the power of new beginnings. Together we can write stories of resilience and transformation one day at a time.